Very good morning, students. Today, let me make you understand from first POC English textbook Reflections, second poem The Schoolboy, written by William Blake. William Blake, from 1757 to 1827, he was an English poet and painter. He was born on 28 November 1757 at Brad Street in Soho, London. He was the third of the seventh children. Blake's father, James, was a hosier. Hosier means deals with stockings. He attended school only long enough to learn reading and writing. At the age of 10, he was educated at home by his mother, Catherine Blake. Bible was a profound influence on Blake and remains a source of inspiration throughout his life. He was apprenticed to James Bezier, an eminent engraver, and then sent to the Royal Academy. His finest work as an artist is the series Invention to the Book of Job. His collection of the poetry includes Poetical Sketches 1783, Song of Innocence 1789, Marrying of Hell and Heaven, and the Song of Experience. The Schoolboy is a lyric from the Song of Experience. The Schoolboy is a poem written in the pastoral tradition that focuses on the downsides of formal education or formal learning. The boy in this poem is more interested in escaping his classroom and enjoying the nature. The child's unfettered life is associated with words of energy and pleasure, love to rise, sing, sweet, joy, youthful spring. Words associated with the effects of education are of negative emotions like sighing and dismay, anxious, worn, dreary, fears, annoy, sorrow, care, griefs. The content of this poem seems to be from the standpoint of an innocent child. However, the diction and style are quite sophisticated and throws light that in the future what will remain to ponder or think and laugh and look back on positivity when winter sets in. When happiness is destroyed, the child is deprived of spontaneous and natural learning amidst nature. Dear students, let's begin. The Schoolboy is an excellent work by William Blake. The Schoolboy is a lyric from the Songs of Experience. Blake's typical of his soothing works are the Songs of Innocence and the Songs of Experience. The speaker is writing in retrospection about the childhood experience from a perspective of a child. Now, the poem, The Schoolboy, the speaker itself is a schoolboy. He describes about the schoolboy's attitude being trapped inside a school rather being allowed to move freely along the countryside on a fine summer day. The poet William Blake suggests that the educational system of his day destroyed the joyful innocence of youth. Blake himself was largely self educated and did not endure the drudgery of the classroom as a child. Formal schooling hinders the imagination of a child. Dear students, look into your textbook. There are 6 stanzas here. I'll read and then I'll explain. The Schoolboy. I love to rise in a summer morn when the birds sing on every tree. The distant huntsman winds his horn, and the skylark sings with me. Oh, what sweet company! Let me explain you. First stanza. Like any other schoolboys, the little boy loved to rise in the early morning, and he loves to be out in the summer and spend his time with the chirping of birds and huntsman's horn and enjoy the melodious voice of the skylark. In the first stanza, poet gives us a pastoral image of the innocence of the nature. This boy was born rise up. Let me explain you. First stanza. Like any other schoolboys, the little boy loved to rise in the early morning, and he loves to be out in the summer and spend his time with the chirping of birds and huntsman's horn and enjoy the melodious voice of the skylark. In the first stanza, poet gives us a pastoral image of the innocence of the nature. This boy was bored to raise up early in the morning because the thought of going to school made him exhausted. Second stanza. But to go to school on a summer morn, oh, it drives all joy away. Under a cruel eye outworn, the little ones spend the day in sighing and dismay. So, for the schoolboy, the thought of going to school made him exhausted. He is deprived of his happiness. He was filled with grief. So he says that it drives his joy away under the authoritarian ways of teaching. And he then complains at the constraint of education and the classroom, where pupils suffer under the cruel oversight of the teacher because at school he was forced to sit in the fear due to the cruel eye of the teacher. As he found no interest in the school or class, he started sighing and he was totally bored. The formal schooling is not natural and spontaneous for a child. Third stanza. Ah, then at times I drooping sit and spend many an anxious hour, nor in my book can I take delight, nor sit in learning's bower, worn through with the dreary shower. Students, at the same time, he was tired. Later, the little one started bending and glooming in the class as he was forced to spend his day in anxiety. He was not at all interested to listen to his teachers. He does not take pleasure or delight in any of his books, nor in school, because of the stress it imposes. So, the boy at times sits with no strength or firmness, losing his youthful enthusiasm. Fourth stanza. How can the bird that is born for joy sit in a cage and sing? How can a child, when fears annoy, but droop his tender wing and forget his youthful spring? So, the speaker says to the readers that it destroys the youthful innocence of youth. Formal education makes a child to droop his tender wing and forget his youthful spring. It is impossible to endure the drudgery of the classroom. The boy does not want to sit in a cage and sing, so he asks rhetorical questions to the readers whether a bird born for joy can sing if it is confined in a cage when it is born for joy. So, if bird cannot sit in a cage and sing, in the same way, how could a child in the classroom, upset by the fears, sit in the classroom? So, school is considered as a cage for a schoolboy. The children cannot enjoy the natural pleasures of life. They fail, they droop, and lose their youthful enthusiasm. A child, if restrained under the umbrella of the annoying fear, tension, and skepticism of his teacher, can never enjoy the natural instincts of joy and playfulness. A world full of rigid course of discipline will ruthlessly take away the beautiful spring of the childhood days of a person's life. Fifth stanza. Oh, father and mother, if buds are nipped and blossoms blown away, and if the tender plants are stripped of their joy in the springing day by sorrow and care's dismay. So, in this para, the speaker targets his next question towards his parents and he asks, how can there be a joyful summer if buds are destroyed and blossoms blown away? In the same way, he asks the question as to how can there exist a fruitful summer for children for if they means young plant here, are stripped of their childhood joy and made to know sorrow and worry. And he also asked, what will remain to be gathered in as a harvest if grief has destroyed everything? So here he compares young plants to the children. Sixth stanza. How shall the summer arise in joy, or the summer's fruits appear? Or how shall we gather what griefs destroy, or bless the mellowing year, when the blast of winter appear? Here, the poet brings out the phrases buds are nipped, blossoms are blown away, the tender plants are stripped, show how the formal education curves a learner's potential. Besides, formal schooling makes a child to droop his tender wing and forget his youthful spring. That means the speaker shows that a budding child is picked, swept off in the early stage of life in an ocean of sorrow when there is no one to care for. It states it is compared to damaged nature that can bear no fruit and have no harvest. If no care and concern over the plant, flowers, birds are taken, then such a summer will be dry and will bear no fruits. The oppressive nature of education indicates by the cruel eye prevent the child realizing his inborn tendency to learn with joy and thus hinders the child's growth forever. So, the speaker asks himself the tough questions: how shall the summer arise in joy, or how shall we enjoy the summer's fruits? How can there we gather our happiness when grief has destroyed everything? In the future, what will remain to ponder or think and laugh when we have not gathered any happiness or joy? What will be left to look back on positively when winter sets in? Here, the speaker he says that this implies that if childhood pleasures and joys are censored and trounced, adult life runs the danger of being utterly dry and unproductive. The old age would be miserable. At last, students, the poet wishes his readers to see the difference between the freedom of imagination offered by close contact with nature and the repressions of the soul caused by unreasonable demand of a so called education. The speaker is unhappy because the child is deprived of this spontaneous and natural learning amidst nature. So, the speaker says all these concerns are expressed through rhetorical questions which have already been answered by the tone of the poem, which gives a final note to the readers of the impossible condition of the schoolboy. At last, the poet concludes the poem beautifully compares it with the nature. He says that without a happy childhood, we shall only have a winter of sorrow. We shall never be able to experience the summer of joy. The poem teaches us that being parents, we shall take due care of our children. It is our duty to see that our children are happy, joyful, and free. If we want our generation to be happy and prosperous, we need to make the joyful childhood and happy one. The themes of the schoolboy. Blake makes use of some interesting and important themes in the schoolboy. First, he explores childhood and youth. Second, theme of education, nature, and freedom. Third, difference between free man in the natural world. Fourth, cruel restriction of the formal education. Fifth, better to know the world from nature. Sixth, effectiveness of standard education. Seventh, right way to raise a child. Eighth, Blake celebrates youth and youth tied to nature. Okay, students, let us see the literary devices of this poem: metaphor, alliteration, anaphora, exclamations and apostrophe, rhetorical questions, imagery and symbolism. Now metaphor, youth and happiness, it is comparison here, as well as the mental state at the school to the destruction of the plant. Bird and plant, little ones drooping drop, one through tender. Now next is the alliteration, is an another literary device that appears throughout this poem. It increases rhyme and rhythm of the verses. First stanza, skylarks sing. Second stanza, day and dismay. Birds, blossoms blown by, nibbed and stripped. Anaphora is the anaphora seen in the third stanza, a repetition of nor at the beginning of the two lines, then again in the fifth stanza with and. Next, exclamatory and apostrophe. Oh, father and mother. Sixth, we found imagery here. It's a mood of summer morning in the countryside, full of nature in countryside. The words are birds, tree, skylark, huntsman, winds, blow his horn. Then the distant huntsman winds, cruel eye out one, times drooping sit. Next, the rhetorical questions like sit in a cage and sing. Second, and forget his youthful spring. Third, or the summer fruit appear. Fourth, when the blast of winter appear. The next is the symbolism, where birds symbolized youth and summer more symbolized youthful days and winter is symbolized to the adulthood. Thank you students. Have a wonderful day ahead.